The 25th of April marks the anniversary of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps' landing on the Gallipoli Peninsula in 1915. For over 100 years now, the solemn commemoration that is Anzac Day has become an important part of our national identity. For it acknowledges the service and sacrifice not only of our First World War soldiers, but all New Zealand servicemen and women to this day.
Over 700 of us went up that hill that day. Less than 100 of us walked off. The rest of them are still there. They lie where they fell, in the ravines and the gullies, on the slopes and the heights of Chunuk Bair. We followed Malone up. Of all the commanding officers on the peninsula, he was the only one I saw who led from the front. The men respected him for it. He's still there, killed by friendly fire. Never understood that term, friendly fire. What's friendly about being killed by your own people? A shrapnel burst got him. They still argue to this day whether it was our artillery or British naval guns from a warship parked in the bay. They never found his body. At that stage we were running out of ammo, running out of water, and running out of men. We'd lost contact with headquarters. But luckily, we had an engineer with us, Bassett. I don't know how he did it, but he somehow managed to run a phone line up that hill 3 times that day. He got awarded a Victoria Cross for his trouble. He was never comfortable with the medal. He always said he was just doing his job, that he didn't do anything more than anyone else that day. I told him he should wear it with pride on behalf of all those blokes that are still up there. From those Turkish trenches that we captured, we could actually see the Straits of the Dardanelles. That's why we were there. We were supposed to take those straits. We were the only troops who took and held high ground during the whole campaign. We could also see Suvla Bay. We could see General Sir Ian Hamilton land 20,000 fresh British troops. We expected to see them push inland quickly. But they didn't. They just sat there. We could see them. They pitched tents. They played football. They had cups of bloody tea. I remember one fella, a Maori bloke. He was a cheeky bugger. He had a mouth on him like Wellington train station, never closed. A mate of his got badly wounded on the first afternoon, and he volunteered to carry him on his back all the way back down to a dressing station. I watched them go and I thought, I'll be lucky if they make it. And if they do make it, well, I'm never going to see him back up here again. Well, a couple of hours later, Bugger me. He turned up. I said to him, "What the hell are you doing back up here?" He said, "Well, I couldn't let you Pākehā fellas have all the fun." Later that afternoon, a Turkish bullet took the top of his head clean off. He was dead before he hit the ground. His eyes were open. After the war, I wanted to find his parents. I wanted to write them a letter and tell them how their son had died. Tell them that their teenage boy was a good man. A good man. I never wrote the letter. Second afternoon, we were finally relieved by 2 British brigades. 71 of us walked back down that mountain. At the next Turkish counterattack, those British troops withdrew, which is the military term for they turned and ran. They gave up the ground that we had bled and died for. They gave up the heights, Chunuk Bair. What a waste. What a waste of good men. I don't remember a lot of names. I remember their faces. They said at the end of the First World War that was the war to end all wars. Well, it turns out the human race has got a short memory. Because here we are, 25 odd years later, we're doing it all again. World War II. My oldest boy's in the North African desert, fighting Germans. His mother's not talking to me because I let him go. I didn't let him go. I couldn't stop him. He was 18, like I was, and all his mates were going, like mine did. When he left, he said to me the exact same words that I said to my father the day I left. He said, "Don't worry, Dad. It'll all be over by Christmas."
That is I.
Royal New Zealand Navy?
No.
No?
English Navy.
English Navy. The ships that you served on?
Yeah, all my time was spent on destroyers.
Oh, okay.
Very small ships.
And what was your rank?
as a telegraphist,
Oh.
then leading telegraphist. Was up for petty officer, but that's part of the story.
I did 23 years of the Navy. All I remember was the fun parts.
Yeah.
You know, the sad parts and being in rough weather and something, hey, is all gone.
I think that Anzac spirit is still alive
Oh, yeah.
and well today.
Very much so.
It is part of the services. The Aussies would give us a hard time now. The Aussies know that Kiwis do not like snakes.
Yeah.
And we had one in B Company in 3 Battalion. We had one particular Aussie, obviously had a lot to do with snakes. Every time they found a snake, he would bring it and show it to us. And show it to us as poke these things under your nose. And he'd come in one end of the tent and we'd go out the other end, and it probably wasn't open at the time. So he came in with this snake. Now they had these snakes in Vietnam called the crate.
Yep.
Apparently it's supposed to be the fastest snake in the world. And they're deadly. So this guy I don't know what he had. He comes in with this thing, and my M16 was sitting on my bed. Because we lived in tents in the Australian lines. So he comes in with a snake, and I picked the M16 up, and I cocked it a couple of times, a couple of live rounds fire out. Hold it still, Oz, I'll get it for you.
We used to fight shoulder to shoulder and so on. And of course, when everyone was gone, it was just us and the Australians. We used to give each other the raspberry, you know, and so on.
But don't forget, you and I can say whatever we like to an Australian about an Australian. But woe betide the palm of the gang.
Oh yeah, so the same thing.
We have a fight on our hands.
Yeah.
It's like when the All Black that sent home from Wales. The
Oh,
Aussies-
Murdoch.
And the Aussies came up with a bumper sticker. Help the Kiwis punch a palm. You know, that's our attitude, and that's what it was like in the Aussie battalions.
And I think that I would assume that was born from what you touched on. First World War, Gallipoli, we had no high command. William Malone was a lieutenant colonel, but all the generals on the peninsula were British.
Yeah.
And the attack on Chunuk Bair and the attack on Lone Pine and the Neck were feints, were diversionary, basically to draw fire from the 20,000 fresh British troops that General Sir Ian Hamilton were landing at Suvla Bay. And they were supposed to push inland and support the Wellingtons on top of Chunuk Bair, but they didn't.
They were sitting there having a cup of tea.
Yeah, they had a cup of tea, they played soccer, they pitched tents. What was born on the slopes of Anzac Cove, that whole Anzac spirit has transferred through 2 world wars and wars beyond that.
Well, they refer to Vietnam as the second great Anzac adventure. And you were Anzac Battalion, weren't you?
Yeah, in fact, we are the last of the Anzacs. There's no more Anzacs. We are the last of the Anzacs. Now it's Anzus.
It is 70 years since the Battle of Cap Yong and the lead up to Anzac Day 1951. And we take this opportunity to acknowledge all the New Zealanders who served in the Korean War. We also want to give special acknowledgement to New Zealanders' role in peacekeeping. In 1951, New Zealand made its first contribution to a multinational peacekeeping operation as part of the United Nations in an effort to resolve conflict over Kashmir. In 2021, we mark 70 years of our nation's contribution around the world to peacekeeping. We can all be proud of our service personnel who continue to stand up for international goals, peace, stability, and often at personal considerable cost.
I did 3 months national service training, signed up. I did a core training by 1968. So I said, come on, sign the paper before we go overseas. Now, do you think for 1 minute, if he told me, or any of us, and said, do you realise with training you are going to go to Vietnam, you may be killed? Do you think guys would sign that? No. And contrary to belief, as people say, that we're volunteers. No, we were professional soldiers. You know, a few years back, came over the ladies for all Vietnam veterans are going to get $40,000. Only 0.5% got it if you were under the dying years. That's true. Now they've given out a gracious payment of $40,000 if you've got HP, high blood pressure. But what about the guys that suffer from PTSD? I live with my blood pressure. I struggle. I've been to the psychologist, give you all these pills, you end up like a zombie in a way, so I don't take them.
Anzac Day is very important. My father served in the Second World War. My grandfather served in the First World War. And because I joined the military, it became very important to me. More so when I heard in 1965 that one of my best friends had been killed by standing on a landmine in Vietnam. And his name was Don Benjamin. And every Anzac Day I get pretty shitty work at it, just because of that.
How relevant do you think Anzac Day is to young people in New Zealand today?
It's relevant to young people for two reasons. One, it's part of your history, and two, it's a part of respect for the people that have served and who are still serving.
Thank you. What does Anzac Day mean to you?
To me, Anzac Day means memories. It means memories of friends that are no longer with us. It also means memories not of heroes, not of big battles, not of bloody great politicians or anything like that. It means memories of the average Joe who got caught up and sent overseas. And to me, they're the real heroes of Anzac Day.
What does Anzac Day mean to you?
It means a lot because I had two uncles, they were mum's brother. They went over in the Second World War and they were lucky to come home after the war, and I had a lot of respect for them. I went to one of the funerals of my uncles, and even today I still remember all our guys that were lost in Vietnam.
So what does Anzac Day mean to you personally?
A time of remembrance for the people that gave their lives so we could have this life we got now. That's it.
Simple as that.
Actually, yeah. Doing a bit of stuff yesterday on Anzac Day on the computer, and I came across this. It's April 25th, a long time ago. We went to battle at dawn. Many lost their lives that day. Together we will mourn. More than that, though, we will march and remember those brave men. For they went to war and battled on, and they fought for our freedom then. Through the darkest nights and the longest days, through the muddy grounds you go. You marched on and looked behind, and you saw the poppies grow. We will wear one on this day to remember your courage so strong. We want you to know that in our hearts, your memory still lives on. I think it's a beautiful pun.
Nearly 3,000 New Zealanders died at Gallipoli and nearly 9,000 Australians. At the end of the campaign, the Anzac divisions were redeployed to the Western Front, where over 60,000 Anzac troops were killed in action.
Thank you.